Do you have a 401k that you'd like to access without penalty before age 59 and a half? Well, the Rule of 55 is an IRS tax rule that allows that. It sounds simple. Leave your job at age 55 and use your 401k without the usual early withdrawal penalty. Like many tax rules, the one-sentence explanation is accurate right up until someone tries to rely on it. This video will cover important aspects of the rule as well as some common mistakes. And remember, I'm explaining the rules and trade-offs here, not telling you what you personally should do. Normally, if you try to access your 401k early, you're going to owe a 10% penalty plus any applicable income tax. The Rule of 55 is an exception to the 10% penalty that normally applies when retirement plan money is withdrawn early. It applies when you separate from employment during or after the calendar year at which you turn 55. That calendar year language matters. You don't have to wait until your 55th birthday. Let's look at an example. If you turn 55 in November, but leave the employer in March of that same year, the exception applies. For once, the IRS has a calendar year wording that works in your favor. But if you leave in December of the year you turn 54, waiting until the following year to withdraw doesn't fix it. You separated too early. The IRS remembers when you left, even if your former coworkers reassigned your chair before you left the parking lot that last time. The separation can be voluntary or involuntary. You can retire, resign, or be laid off. The important conditions are when you separated and which plan is distributing the money. That second condition causes a lot of the confusion. The exception applies to qualified employment plans associated with the employer you just left. The most familiar example is your last employer's 401k, but it could also apply to a 403b as well as the federal TSP. It doesn't unlock every retirement account you own. IRAs, whether traditional, Roth, SEP, or simple, they're not covered. And it only applies to employers that you left at the calendar year you turned 55 or later. An old 401k with an employer you left 20 years ago, not covered. That creates a planning opportunity. If the current 401k plan accepts rollovers, some people consolidate a traditional IRA or an older employment plan into their current employer's plan. Once those other assets are inside the eligible plan, they become accessible under the rule. But the transfer has to be completed before you leave, and moving money can also affect fees and investment choices. The opposite mistake is more common. Someone retires at 56, immediately rolls the current 401k into an IRA, and then discovers that the IRA doesn't retain Rule of 55 treatment. The money rolls over. The Rule of 55 does not pack its bags and go with it. The rollover may be perfectly reasonable for other reasons, but it does remove the easiest penalty-free bridge to age 59 and a half. The Rule of 55 also only removes the additional 10% tax. It does not make the withdrawal tax-free. That would be a Roth. Pre-tax money in a traditional 401k is still included in ordinary income, and a large withdrawal can affect federal, state taxes. It can affect ACA subsidies, Medicare premiums in later years, and how Social Security gets taxed. Roth money inside an employer plan adds another layer. People save in a Roth expecting the earnings to come out tax-free, but that's not the case if they come out early. The age 55 exception may prevent the penalty, but penalty treatment and income tax treatment are two separate things. Most people find it's best to leave Roth earnings alone until the distribution qualifies as tax-free, which typically requires meeting both age 59 and a half and satisfying the 5-year rule. I've got some Roth conversion videos if you want more information on that. If you found this video to be informative, consider clicking the subscribe button so YouTube shows you videos I make on topics related to the years leading up to and transitioning to retirement. And if you have topics you'd like to see, please let me know in the comments. Now we get to the phrase financial advisors often repeat. Make sure your plan allows it. People hear this and assume the plan administrator can stop them from using the Rule of 55. That is not the case, but there is nuance. The tax code says when a distribution can escape the additional tax. Your employer's plan document says when and how the plan will actually distribute money. These aren't the same thing. This next section gets into some details to be aware of, but if the plan doesn't make it easy to use the Rule of 55, we'll also cover how you can approach your employer to ask for a change. One employer's plan may allow monthly withdrawals in any amount. A second may permit only quarterly distributions. A third may allow a limited number each year, require a minimum withdrawal, or offer only a lump sum after separation. A plan can legally qualify for the penalty exception while being operationally useless for somebody who expected a smooth monthly disbursement. The tax code may allow for the withdrawal. Your employer plan may respond, certainly, provided you take the entire balance on a Tuesday in one check. The summary plan description and the plan administrator are therefore more important than an online article or a YouTube video describing the Rule of 55. While you're still employed, learn about the particulars of your 401k. Ask whether the plan accepts incoming rollovers, whether separated employees can take partial withdrawals, how frequently those withdrawals are allowed, what taxes are withheld, what fees apply, and whether former employees retain the same investment options after leaving the employer as current employees. Plan administrators are required by law, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, to make certain information available. Why ask why you're still employed? Because if you don't like the answers, it's far easier to lobby for a change from the inside. More on that in a bit. It's also important to understand how the plan deals with taxes and withholding. Just as employers have to hold on to parts of your paycheck for income tax, the IRS requires the same for disbursements from a traditional 401k. A flat 20% is common, but not all disbursements will be treated the same, and the employer has some latitude as well. It's best to ask the plan administrator what will be withheld and if you can adjust the amount. Sometimes you might want to go higher, sometimes you might want to go lower. And if they do hold back that additional 10%, realize that everything's going to be trued up when you file your taxes. What you may have noticed is that the Rule of 55 can be very useful if your employer allows multiple disbursements per year, but is less so if you have to take everything in one lump sum. If your employer is more like that second example, talk to the benefit folks in HR. Mention what you'd like to see and ask what the process is for a change. Especially in smaller employers, they likely simply took a plan template from the 401k management company and have no idea that they can make changes to it or why they would do so. Ask. There's even a class of careers that qualify for the Rule of 55 at age 50 or after 25 years of employment under the plan, whichever comes first. These are typically public service employees in law enforcement, firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, air traffic controllers, and others. But in 2022, the Secure 2.0 Act also added private sector firefighters to the list. The Rule of 55 is most useful as a bridge. It can provide access to employer plan money during the years between leaving work and reaching 59 and a half. But it works best when three pieces align. You separate in the correct year or later, the money remains in an eligible employer plan, and that plan permits the withdrawals that you need. And if the Rule of 55 doesn't meet your needs, I have videos on two other ways of accessing your money early: Roth conversions and substantial equal periodic payments, also known as SEP or 72T. The tax rule opens the door. The plan document really determines whether there's actually a usable path through it.